Hello, and thank you so much for tuning into my podcast. My name is Kara, and I'm a holistic health practitioner for both people and pets. After working for years in the conventional medicine field, I realized that while our lifespans may be getting longer, our health spans are rapidly shrinking. And when it comes to our pets, both their length and quality of life are decreasing. When I turned to functional medicine and a more holistic approach to health, I saw dramatic improvements for my pets, myself, and my patients. Join me each week as I merge natural health for people and pets by focusing on the root cause of disease and applying raw, real remedies that you can use to improve overall wellness for every member of your family, including the furry ones. Hello and welcome back, everyone. I'm so happy to have you here listening today. Today, I'm joined by Rebekah Graves from ION, which stands for Intelligence of Nature. And this is a company whose products I've been using for myself, my dogs, and my cats for actually a couple of years now. Rebekah is the practitioner channel manager for ION, and she's been with the company for over 5 years. She studied environmental science at the University of Virginia and has a generational passion for regenerative agriculture, which is really exciting to hear, actually, because I have a local couple who does regenerative ranching, and they're going to be coming on to chat with me in a couple of weeks. So I love that we share that passion.
Yes,
so,
golden
welcome.
Thank you.
I think a lot more people are getting interested in that lately, and it's been kind of a hot topic because people are starting to realize that we're really depleting our soil, and it's depleting the animals that eat the soil and the nutrients that we get from them as well, and just kind of an overall big global problem.
Absolutely. And Kara, that is such a great place to start in that's really what birthed this product is Zach's discovery of really soil health. So our founder and CEO is Dr. Zach Bush. He's a triple board certified physician, and he was actually developing chemotherapy drugs at the University of Virginia here in Charlottesville when he had this epiphany that the world wasn't, they weren't dying of a lack of chemotherapy, right? Mm-hmm. He was like, where is all this chronic illness coming from? And he started kind of tracing it back to our soil health and our farming practices. And he really initially started studying when he got into the lab because he was coming from a lab environment at UVA. And so our facility here in Charlottesville has a lab that rivals top university labs. So it's a very research and science-backed company. And he started studying essentially the effects of glyphosate on our gut lining and our tight junction integrity of the gut. And the glyphosate, the tick up on the chart between chronic illness, autism, all of these autoimmune disease, it starts upticking in the 90s really quickly at the same time as glyphosate usage. And it is something that, is banned in the EU. It should absolutely be illegal here in the States. And that's really our passion project is to really facilitate that understanding as well of regenerative agriculture. We have Farmers Footprint as a nonprofit. So we would love for that to, be the core. It's always been part of our story and is really how it came to be.
I didn't know that. So is that where you guys met? Because you also went to the University of Virginia.
We actually met later on when he was looking at studying kind of the cell integrity of the gut membrane. And when glyphosate is exposed to that gut membrane, it tears apart those tight junctions. And he was kind of meeting with one of our co-founders, William Vitalis. They were both fathers in the same, their kids were in the same class in school. And they had all taken this kind of kayaking trip down the river. And Dr. Zach and William met this kayaking trip through the school. And William was studying this science of soil and was kind of bringing this science to Zach as well over the course of their friendship. And it started kind of piecing these puzzles together. And so with ION, that started as the name Restore. Restore was the company for 8 years, I believe. So some people remember us still as Restore. And then when we transitioned into ION around that time was when I met Zach. And it was already a company of, probably 40 or 50 people at that point. But we were kind of in the same orbit. And friends of his were telling me had like one of their first sales reps, just knowing who I am and my background and my interests, she kept saying, God, you got to come work with Zach. You got to come work with this company. And it just aligned. And once I did, I was just stuck.
I love it.
I think there's really something to be said about kind of finding your niche, like finding your people. And, sometimes it could be the most unique little subsection of the internet, but we find each other and you just feel that connection and you kind of know like, oh yeah, this is where I was meant to be the entire time.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And I love that he kind of took inspiration from multiple areas, which is something that I think is really cool about science. So as a scientist myself, right, I'm a nurse practitioner, and you go into the workplace or you go into circles or you're talking to someone on maybe a Facebook group, and you see everybody kind of bring in their own passions, and that all just contributes to the larger whole. And you never know quite what you're going to find or who might inspire you. So I love that he took that from his friend, and then, that plus his research he was already doing. And
it's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think of when you're saying that, it's like we find patterns sometimes like in nature or in our lives. And he was literally coming from chemotherapy, looking into the soil. He had this moment where he was like, he saw in the soil, he's like, what is chemotherapy doing in our soil? And it was glyphosate. Yeah. Yeah. And then he went down this rabbit hole that, like, this is the largest sprayed antibiotic on our farmland, in our food. It is water soluble. Once it hits that cell lining, it breaks apart those tight junctions. And so it's like a 1-2 whammy. When it breaks apart those tight junctions, when we see that on our cell culture studies, it looks like leaky gut under a microscope. Those cells go into like fetal position. They're in shock. They lose their connection. And then that whole membrane now has open passageways where that toxin now goes straight into your bloodstream, right? And then wrecks all sorts of inflammation. That's when your immune system responds and kind of puts on a red alert, right? When you have the invader and the toxin comes in. So that's when you constantly have those assaults against the lining. You get chronic inflammation. You're chronically inflamed from that assault. And with ion, that's where that's exactly the barrier that it's functioning at. And when we put ion on those same cell cultures, then when you hit it, it tightens. The junctions tighten within 15 minutes. And so you have this inner armor that stays connected for 4 to 6 hours. That's why we take it throughout the day. But it tightens those junctions, even under assault of the glyphosate or the gluten or the gliadin. And let's be honest, like these crops, the heavy GMO crops that are sprayed the most with glyphosate are the corn and the wheat and all the fillers that go into kibble, right? Like they have such a high level of glyphosate. And that's one of the reasons why we see all of these issues with kidneys, these downstream detox pathways, because they are burdened with the largest scale antibiotic that is in our water table. It's literally in our rainwater. It's in our city shower. We're showering in it. Everywhere. It's inescapable. Even if you're like, oh, I eat organic, or, oh, I do, farmer's dog, or whatever you're doing. Like, that's awesome. Like the steps that we can take, but it's literally inescapable. And, pets, we take them out to doggy parks. We take them on walks in the city where areas are being sprayed with weed killer. And they have their paws on the ground. And what do? They lick their paws. So
and they bring it right back inside, and then it's exposing your cats that walk on the same floor.
So, really the solution in the end is to get rid of glyphosate, right? Like that's the team that we're on. But until we do, we need to have a defense, right? We need to be protected. And it's through this redox signaling that's allowing that whole mechanism to happen.
So I want to just like kind of hone in a little bit on a little bit more on glyphosate for people who don't know. So that's the same. That's what's in Roundup, right?
Yeah,
same thing.
It was once patented as Roundup, correct? And glyphosate was first introduced, patented as a metal chelator. So it's literally stripping minerals from our soil and minerals from our body. It was then patented as a desiccant. So it killed everything it touched, any single-celled organism that it touched. So they were like, oh my God, wheat, right? So wheat is one of the only crops that it has to be dead before you harvest it. So they spray it with glyphosate to kill the wheat. And then they harvest it. They're not washing that. It's literally so that it's dry and dead, that doesn't break down and get mold and fungus, but they do it with glyphosate. So that's one reason why it's so important when you're eating wheat to eat organic.
whenever possible, because that is one of the heaviest laden crops with glyphosate. So then when it was Roundup, farmers used to have to spray it around the perimeter of their farms. And okay, this is a weed killer, but it kills any single-celled organism that it touched. It was literally killing the microbiome, the biome of the soil. So they could only spray it around the crops until they created Roundup Ready crops. So you spray the Roundup Ready crops with glyphosate, everything looks fine, but it's killing everything in the soil below it. So it's really disrupting that the biome of the soil that we're losing that connection with.
I think what's really important for people to understand is that your gut, your whole body is more single-celled organisms than your own cells. They outnumber us millions to one. I mean, your gut is literally made up of bacteria and yeast and protozoa and all kinds of stuff are in there. And you need them. They're your friends. They're your best buds. You can't kill them. When you do, it leads to problems. So, not only is this kind of pesticide, which it's also an antibiotic, right? And so not only is that killing the soil microbes and anything, beneficial that was on the plants, which I'll get back to that, but once you put it into yourself, it directly damages your cells, and then it also kills your beneficial microbes. And you need them to make serotonin, make short-chain fatty acids, you can't function without your gut microbiome. And when you're constantly assaulting them, it leaves you open to secondary infections, overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria, dysbiosis, so like more of the bad and less of the good. That's going to lead to chronic gut issues like GERD, protein-losing enteropathies, IBD, right? We love diagnosing everybody with IBD nowadays. It really should just be called glyphosate exposure, inflamed bowel or something like that.
Yeah, gluten sensitivity as well. It's like the people that have gluten sensitivity that can go to Italy and eat their bread and then eat their pasta, it's literally because of the way that we're farming our wheat.
Yeah. This is a direct contributor to the amount of people who have gluten sensitivity or true celiac disease, because you're spraying the crap out of something that is put into everything. I actually recently went gluten-free, 4 months ago now, because I was doing a bit of an experiment. I wanted to see, I was having some chronic stuff, and turns out it's a little bit more than I thought it was. But I started with gluten, and I started with gluten and processed sugar. And when I cut out the gluten, I felt a lot better pretty quickly. A lot less bloating, better digestion, more regular bowel movements, less headaches, right? A lot of these things that I think people live with and don't even realize they're plaguing them until you take it away and you go, oh, I could have felt better this whole time. But then it's so hard to find gluten-free products. It is in
that
stuff
are good
you
or
would
satisfying in any
never
way.
expect.
Yes, it's like
pasta sauce and bone broth on the shelf. Like, I make my own bone broth, but so many things that you would just reach for and never think it's in there. You flip it over and you're going to find an ingredient that is gluten-full.
We use it. It's
crazy.
Like the sugar epidemic for us again. Now the second round is the wheat epidemic. It's wild. But on diversity, because I love what you said about the antibiotic, of course, knocking out your microbiome. And a lot of times we immediately go to oh, my gut's out of whack. We go to our probiotics, right? We think it's a $1 billion industry that, essentially how Zach looks at probiotics is it's like monocropping your gut in a sense. Like it's as the farming community, when you monocrop farms, I'm going to plant corn and a lot of it, it's like we've designated 5 to 10 sometimes species. And if we think of bacteria, let's think of them as signals. Let's think of them as letters in an alphabet. And when we think about diversity, we want a lot of diversity, and that means different signals, different letters. If we're only working with 5 letters or 10 letters, but we dump 1 billion copies of that letter, we're really not able to say that much more. But when we're pulling the signaling from 30 to 40,000 letters in nature, that is such a you can say a lot with that language, right? And so ion functions different than a probiotic in that it's working through signaling. It's through this natural redox signaling that's essentially cellular exchanges. So the ion is a soil-derived supplement. It is pulled from 60 million year old soil. And I think we've covered, with you guys, why we would want to pull from 60 million year old soil, because our soil is so depleted of minerals from the chelation, of over farming, tilling methods, ways that we're not giving back to that soil and building the biome. We've just been taking from it in commercial farming. Whereas when you look at regenerative farming, you're farming soil. You know, you're building your soil, and then you're going to have better crops, better grasses, less weeds, right? So it's a completely different approach. And with that ion, these molecules we take from 60 million year old soil, and they're dormant, they're asleep, like they've been underground, right? And that's pretty much as close to like a shilajit or like a fulvic humic supplement as we come, is our raw material. But we take that raw material, we put it in Vortex. We have a proprietary blending method that is essentially knocking off extra ions, it's electrons, it's balancing the molecule, and it's putting it back into signaling capacity. So we've just turned back on the signaling capacity of 60 million year old soil, where dinosaurs grew to the size of skyscrapers eating vegetation. All right, so this layer of soil is incredibly rich in bacterial metabolites. So that's what's left over from bacteria. It's their network. So we're bringing that network back online, and we're drinking like literally a liquid circuit board, in that it is donating electrons. It's at a place where it donates electrons and receives them. So it's fulvates. Fulvates are wonderful communicators. I like to think of fulvates as like an ion, and how it functions as like a really great wait staff that comes to the table of the cell, donates to the cell what that cell needs, and then removes the plates, removes the waste. So it has this increase in nutrient absorption and this gentle cellular chelation.
That's amazing. I love all your analogies. You do
Isn't
such a
that
good job of explaining everything. You make it so easy.
I'm such a visual person. And it's like when you get into redox signaling and this super sciencey stuff, which Kara, I think that you're just as like into like as I am.
I'm a big nerd.
But you want to be able to like understand it. And for me, working with practitioners, I want them to be able to like explain it in a way that makes sense, that you see it, you see the wait staff, you know what ion is doing. And then it clicks. You have the aha moment. So if I were taking other supplements, I would take it with ion. Mm-hmm. You know,
it's easy to do. It's liquid. Most people listen and aren't watching, although you can watch us on YouTube if you want. But for those who are listening, so I have the ion, which is I have their gut support. It's a liquid. It's a bottle. It has liquid. This is actually the one for pets, but this is the one I also use for myself. And the reason is because I like how it has the silicone in it, because I know that helps with kind of like...
such a sharp eye. Good call out.
So could you explain to people what that does? Because it has the humic extract from ancient soil, but explain to us why this additional ingredient is beneficial.
Yes, so good. So back when we were Restore, our pet product was Luma Pet. And Luma Pet was the exact same formula as Ion Gut Support, or at that point was Restore, and it was marketed different. This happens a lot with companies. You know, they'll like use the same thing. It was the same exact formula, though, for years. And then when we switched to Intelligence of Nature, we upticked that pet product. It's a little bit of a different process in the blending process. It's slightly different. And the added silica further targets their joint health, their bone health, and their joint, bone, kidney health. Yeah. So I've even heard mention of someone that had kidney disease or chronic kidney CKD. No, they would kill me. Zach was like, take the pet product. Like if I run out of one, I'll take the other one. My cat will take, one or the other. Yeah. So it's just a little added bonus one, especially for their kidneys, because pets, you guys, like kidneys they're getting hit so hard. And so they need all the support that they can get. And when we talk about gut membrane integrity, we're talking about all membrane integrity. So that's over your vascular system, your kidneys, your all of your organs are getting this membrane integrity from Ion.
I love that.
With the pet, like as far as taking it, sometimes, especially when I'm at shows and people are like trying things and they're kind of like, oh, because you're expecting the worst. When you think of like a medicine or like a supplement, sometimes like, oh, it's a liquid. How does it taste? Yeah. And it's like tasteless. It tastes kind of like a mineral water. Like it's very easy to take. And sometimes people ask, well, should I put it in their water? The only thing I would suggest is one, not to put it in chlorinated water. So if you're on the city water system, even if it's filtered, unless it's reverse osmosis, I would just not put it in the water because chlorine is very harsh on molecular structure. Chlorine is not very nice. Doesn't play well with others. It's amazing that we bathe in it, right? So I recommend, because I change the water so frequently with my pets, they're not always getting it all, right? If I put it in the water. So I put it right on their food or next to their food. My cat loves it. She goes first to the ion. She licks it up. Sometimes she'll lick her paws. Like, she loves it. And then she goes back and eats her food. Like,
that's so
they
cute.
know, you know? Also, sometimes when animals get hot spots, right? Like itchy spots on them, a lot of times, just like with us and our skin, the gut-skin connection is major. So I'd always look at what they're eating. If there's like corn, wheat, some sort of like allergen type of thing, or soy that could be, chemically altered or chemically sprayed, I would kind of work with their diet. And I'd also spray that topically. So you can put the pet product or the human product in a little mister and target those spots. I've even had a pet parent who she had that little spray bottle because they had these spots, and she was like, they love it so much, I just spray their mouth. Before she was like she makes their own dinner. So she's like, while I'm preparing their dinner, I spray in their mouth. And she says, you're not going to believe this, but their gums are healthier. It was like after a few months, their gums are healthier. Their breath is so much better. She's like, I swear, I think their teeth are getting whiter. Less flatulence, better bowel movements, less sensitivities. And a lot of times animals are going to show their sensitivities in their skin. So don't be afraid to use it topically.
Yeah. And so, I want to talk about one of your topical products, but so this, it's so funny. This came in the mail this morning. So I was waiting for it to arrive, and I woke up like an hour before recording because I work night shift. And I said to myself, man, I really wish my package would have arrived because I ran out. I didn't save the bottle. I want to be able to show it. But here it is. It was serendipitous. So I have just some water. Here's my water, my little mushroom cup. Here's the Ion Pet. It's just, give it a little squirt. I put it right in my water. You can't taste it. You don't know it's there. For my pets, I do put it directly into their food. My cats are very selective about what they eat. They're raw fed. But my goodness gracious, if I try and put anything in there that they like sniff it out, they just know. This, no problem at all.
Or is tonight the night? You have?
Oh, no, they've had it before.
Oh,
no,
good.
They have no problems. Yeah, the dogs they eat. I just put it in their food. They chow down. The cats, I put it right over their food. They have no avoidance whatsoever. For me, I put it in my water, or what I usually do is I actually pop it right in my tea in the morning because I have it right next to my my kettle. I couldn't think of the word for a second. So I have it right next to my kettle.
The best way, a lot of people on the label for humans, it says to take 1 teaspoon 3 times a day, 30 minutes before you eat. Like, it does not need to be that structured at all. Yeah. It's actually because of that 15-minute tight junction integrity and the 4 to 6 hour length of time, that half-life, you just want to keep it throughout the day. So having it in convenient places is so key. I have a bottle in my kitchen where I just take a shot while I'm prepping dinner. When I wake up in the morning, that same bottle, I'll take a shot when I'm making my coffee. And then I have a bottle. I always have bottles, big bottles. I have a little bottle by my desk. So, I'll just take a shot. Like, you don't have to, there's no harm in taking it with food. There's no harm taking it after food. Like, the label says 30 minutes before, just to give you that tight integrity. But again, if you're with the food, with animals, they're going to clean that bowl. They're going to clean it. They're going to have it all. And then you're giving it at their mealtime. So it's kept through the system. And that's what you want. You want it in your system.
Yeah. And I think, it really speaks to the ease of being able to administer it, that it's so tasteless because like my own cats, some cats, some dogs are just so picky, and they, it's hard. When they're fed a non-species appropriate diet for so many years, they imprint on that food, and then it's just so hard to sneak anything in. And the last thing you want is for a cat to not eat because They can be really, really detrimental and actually cause liver failure in just a couple of days if they don't eat. Yeah. So cats are not like dogs. They're like the perfect tiny killing machines. But then if you don't feed them for like 36 hours, they go into liver failure. It's like, who decided that's how the body was going to work?
Wow.
But
And that probably has to do with their conditioning and their diet and like not living their like the metabolism perhaps of the hunter gatherer, that would be a cat.
Yeah. Cats are crazy. They're my fave. They're difficult. So I want to focus a little bit on, we've been talking a lot about leaky gut, and people have definitely heard me talk about leaky gut before. So if we could kind of tie in leaky gut health, and immune health. So I know that just below that kind of layer of protection, those layer of cells that line the intestine, that are all exposed to all of the chemicals, all of the foods, all of the antigens, right? Just below that is the gut, which is like the lymphoid tissue. And that is an immune organ, right? It's the lymphatic. It brings everything to the rest of the body from the gut. So why then is this so helpful, and how does this strengthen immune health?
Such a great question. Yeah. So again, like back to that leaky gut, when you're opening up that membrane, and that is literally one cell layer thick. It's the width of half of a human hair. One band of cells are held together there at that barrier. When they break apart, those invaders cross the membrane, and that's the gut layer that you mentioned. That is what's driving your immune system. It is what's sending out. It's kind of like an operator, like the hub to like 911 or something, the fire department, or we're calling in the fire department, or we got to call in this, or we got to call in that. We got to call in the red blood cells. We got to call. It's like the tower. And when you're passing those, constantly being assaulted, you're getting this hyperactivity of your immune system as well. And it no longer, sometimes you'll then get into autoimmune, which Zach feels all autoimmune is connected to leaky gut. It's where your body then stops knowing what is an invader and what is, it gets into this overdrive, right? So we're constantly assaulting, the immune system, and we're open to these pathogens and these irritants because we're breaking down the very thing, the veil that protects us. It's like that movie Earth, like looking at Earth from outer space, these pictures of Earth, and it's like space is rough. It's a void. It's a vacuum. It's like, it's nuts, right? And they're looking at Earth, this beautiful blue marble with this like incredibly thin veil around it, right? And that's our atmosphere. That's literally how we can have water. That's literally what keeps us breathing in here and surviving. Like our gut lining to me has a bit of that essence, that ilk of like being this very thin, like strong, but somewhat fragile to this particular type of onslaught and poison, basically through our food system. And, who knows, weather modification, all sorts of things that we are exposed to that our body wasn't made to know what to do with. Our body, like we're breathing and we're eating and we're drinking. We're filters as well for what we're ingesting. And our body kind of locks things away, right? Doesn't know what to do. And that's essentially what's happening with our immune system, is you're getting these invaders, this hyperactivity. And when that immune system is firing off, you're increasing IL-6 markers, zonulin levels. These are inflammatory markers, right? When you have inflammation, some people would say inflammation is the root of all chronic disease, right? It's this chronic assault and this chronic defense, and breakdown of the very systems that were beautifully created, somehow magically, wonderfully, to protect us and to function in a way. And we're kind of breaking that cycle with what we've put into our earth. Yeah.
I like how you said that, strong but delicate. We expect our gut lining to do a job 100% of the time. And it's almost like if you don't give it the supplies that it needs, clean water, food that's not sprayed with pesticides, avoiding chemicals, things like that, then it's like putting soldiers on the front line without anything, any gear, any cold weather gear, anything, and it's
just getting hammered. Right.
And it can only hold up for so long. And then, what happens when how I think of this sometimes, you ever see like a beautiful, perfect spider web You walk out in the morning and it's just like glistening in the sun, and it's a perfect symmetric circle, and it's all uniform. And then something happens to it and a little piece gets torn, and you're like, oh no, it's not perfect anymore. And then you come back out the next morning and it's been repaired.
It's repaired.
But that little part that they repaired doesn't match the rest of the circle. It's like jagged and it's all doubled up on itself. The more we whack our gut lining, the more those incredibly delicate cells have to repair themselves, and the increased risk that they're going to replicate with a mutation, or not be maybe the right size that we need, or maybe not adhere to the cell next to it quite as tightly, right? And so that increases the risk of leaky gut, but also increases the risk of things like malignancy. Colon cancer rates are
it falls down from there.
The
gut lining is kind of like the first domino to fall, and then the dominoes fall after, depending on perhaps that person's environment, their exposures, perhaps some of their heredity, their genetics, how they respond, what goes up, right? But that's really the first domino to fall. And it's kind of like the injury to recovery response, right? It's like you're getting more injury than you're allowed to recover. And we have that kind of onslaught happening all around us in so many different ways of not having enough recovery time over the injury.
Yeah, we never give ourselves enough time, and we never give ourselves enough resources. But this is a great resource. So
yeah, and actually one thing, with ion, in that it actually, we saw with human cells, we noticed with cell and injury response that, kidney cells, colon tubules, kidney tubules, these like blood-brain barrier, these like very like barriers that are hit, and then the stress response, the ROS stress response on these very delicate cells. And a lot of times science studies like kidney tubules, how something responds, because they're the first ones that are going to get hit. They're super delicate. So we studied ion against water, like lab grade water, and the cell death of the lab grade water was so much higher, that ROS response, than submerging those cells in ion. It's literally helping keep healthy cells healthier, and then cells that are damaged or dying, that apoptosis also is sloughing off those diseased and damaged cells. So it's kind of like bringing that communication in. And again, one more analogy is, I don't know if you've ever seen Fantasia.
Yeah.
But like Mickey Mouse. Okay, get this. Mickey Mouse in the dungeon, all of the brooms are asleep and it's flooding, and he doesn't know what to do, right? And he starts orchestrating. He's directing the orchestra, right? And the brooms start waking up and grabbing the buckets and carrying the water out. That's literally ion. It's like bringing the direction into your gut, and it's like, okay, here we go. You're going to do that, and you're going to do that. Oh, you're dead. You're damaged. You're gone. So it's just bringing in this communication, and your body's just responding. Like ion's not doing the thing. It's bringing in the communication for your body to kind of be like, oh, wow. Like, man, this is living, right? So you start noticing, like when you start repairing your gut, like 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut lining, 50% of your dopamine, right? Better mood, better skin, better rest. So many of these things with ATP, we were showing higher ATP production, cellular energy, with ion. So the more we study, the more we're just astounded that when we started using it, we only had scratched the surface, and we just continue to learn more. Within the first 2 weeks of use, we showed an increase by 118% of L-lysine production, an increase in 136% of glutathione production. This is your microbiome creating these antioxidants. It's not in the product. What better format to get glutathione and L-lysine, these immune antioxidants, than by your body's own ability to produce them in the first place?
And they're so important. L-lysine is needed for wound repair. The glutamate. I mean, this is one of the top important things for gut health, and that's so amazing. That's so amazing. I love it. Tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to learn and study.
So much to learn. Oh my gosh, it's so fascinating. Amazing. And have you tried the skin support spray yet?
This one right here. So,
Yeah.
so that's what I wanted to segue to. So, for people who are listening, so I have this cute little spray bottle. It like fits in the palm of my hand. It's like hand sized. And it's the Skin Support Daily Defense Mist. Now, this is something that you kind of mist a couple spritzes on your face, neck, and chest after showering. So I use it after I shower, and I just do it really quick while I'm like drying my hair. And then by the time my hair is dry, what I just sprayed on my face is done, and then I can put my nice natural tallow moisturizer on because I stopped using all of the terrible skin crap that you can buy on the shelves at the store. But that's a conversation for another day.
I love the skin spray. So like I had mentioned before, at first we were like putting it in little misters, the gut support. And it was being used in the largest burn center in Atlanta for burn patients. So it's amazing. Again, it acts as an antioxidant. It's quenching free radicals. So it's lowering the damage across your skin. It's lowering that stress response. So with seeing how well the gut spray was working topically, we literally called it the boo-boo spray in my household. So a bug bite, cut, oh my gosh, what else? Sty in the eyes, sunburn, skin burn. We were using it topically and it was amazing. And then they were like, oh my God, we should develop a skin support spray. So I already loved it and I was using it. I used the gut support topically for a couple years.
Yeah.
But the skin support, holy moly, did it like level up times 100. It has the ion base, so it's working at the barrier of your skin, right? Because we have those epithelial cells. That is our largest exposed organ is our skin. So it has added magnesium citrate, which is a calming agent, copper gluconate, which is known as nature's Botox, so increasing collagen production, zinc gluconate, which will calm any redness or acne, and magnesium citrate and MMST silica, so elastin production. And I kid you not, I used to break out along my chin like hormonal acne, went away, have not had it since. My 11s, like my fine lines in my face have totally lightened to where my sister's 2 years older swears I've had Botox and I never would do that. But I had strong 11s and they'll still it's not gone, but like I'm aging gracefully and it's something that I do not want to ever go without. Better improved tone and texture of my skin. And I'd never get dry spots like I used to in the winter. It stays like dewy. I don't wear much makeup at all, like a little bit of mascara. And just, I again, wash my face twice a day, spray it on my face, my chest, the tops of my hands if I'm thinking of it. Then I'll like brush my teeth, floss, do that, and it sets in. And that's just like a wonderful base. If you add your moisturizer when it's still wet, it just doesn't it doesn't do the same thing.
Yeah.
It
let
really,
it dry.
And I just use, I literally, this toner I use twice a day before I go out in the sun, after I come in from the sun. The only time I've had only 2 calls where it irritated someone slightly. And there were both children with eczema. So eczema and psoriasis are things that I typically always, of course, you want to address nutrition, you want to address gut health, you want to address any inflammatory foods, gut support. If you could only do one thing, gut.
Yes.
If you could only buy the gut, use the gut topically as well. Psoriasis, I've seen incredible results. Oh my Lord. I have pictures from someone that had suffered with psoriasis for 12 years, used ion topically twice a day, went to, I believe, probably a vegan or raw diet for those 9 days. And it cleared like you would not believe. She called me crying in tears. She was like, I never thought that I would experience this day. And but the 2 children had eczema and the skin spray did make it a little bit more red. And I said, you know what? It's probably the zinc or the copper, right? So I would just go to the gut support topically in those situations. For that kind of, I think of the skin support as more a cosmetic for sure, 100%, like for all of those improvements that I mentioned, and also great for like the sun exposure response because it's lowering that sun damage. But for like the boo-boos, maybe go for the gut support. But again, they're all tools to use and try. But those were just disclaimer. Those are the only times. Typically when I pass out the skin support at shows, Everyone's coming to me the next day raving. They're like, I need another bottle. I love it already. That's amazing. It's something that you notice immediately. Whereas the gut support, some people don't notice something for a long time. I mean, I know I did, but I had problems, GI problems out of the wazoo, you know?
Yeah.
Post-antibiotic treatment, Lyme disease, gout right here. And yeah, my gut was wrecked. And it wasn't until the doctors were wanting me to get on an SSRI. I was having panic attacks. They're like, here, let's cover up the symptoms, right? Wasn't until a naturopathic doctor said, how's your gut health? I'm like, it's a wreck like everything else, right?
Yeah.
And he put me on this product when it was Restore, and here I'm working for them, you know, almost 6 years later.
That's
it's
amazing.
Like that good. But it's sometimes, you know, people who are healthy or like health coaches that are like eating well, you don't necessarily notice yourself producing 118% more L-lysine. But like, I haven't been sick since 2019. Like, I literally have not been sick since 2019, all through this COVID mess. Like, so that says
That's
something.
excellent. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, if you're in good health, then all you're just doing is bolstering your health and bolstering your stores, and that's totally fine. I'm hoping to.
Preventative medicine is so worth it. Save you the money now so you're not spending it later, right? It's a very cheap way to protect yourself so that you're not down the line kicking yourself in cancer treatment because you wish you'd protected yourself better. You know, it's like preventative medicine is where it's at.
100% proactive, not reactive, which
we all get in that situation, and we've witnessed people that do, and things that are really hard to treat, like the chronic illnesses that we're seeing, they're hard to treat. You know,
but once you get them over that hump, you know, if you can just continue that lifestyle, continue the prevention, and continue the support, and you know, and it's funny. So I had already used this, I mentioned, but then I haven't had it for the last couple of months. Because I was trying a few different things, and I did some testing, and it turns out I have some high levels of heavy metals. And so when I consulted with a person who did my HTMA test, my hair mineral test, she mentioned, oh, well, you wrote in here that you used ion, because you have to list all the stuff that you have taken in the past, you know, when you do these tests. She goes, oh, you mentioned that you use ion. Are you still using it? Because that's really great for heavy metal. And I was like, oh, no, I ran out and I just haven't bought another one yet. And she was like, okay, well, it's time to renew. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to tackling that. I'm sure it'll be its own journey, but I'll be adding this back into the repertoire for that. So
it's a wonderful support, even if you've had an exposure and say like, okay, I'm going to do this detox for heavy metals, and I'm going to do it, you know, whoever, you know, maybe you're using binders or incorporating chelators. Ion is always still good as a support to use along that process. Like, it's a wonderful maintenance product as well. And we consider it like a gentle detox because, but as far as like going in for heavy metals and nickel or aluminum or mercury, you know, that may be a different approach, but I would always use ion with it. I know we work with one of our accounts that Dr. Pompa, who's really known for cellular detox and heavy metal detox, he uses ion in every single one of his protocols, and he references that it's preventing auto intoxication. So in that, like, you're releasing all this, you're binding it in the gut, and you want that gut membrane to be taught to be connected so that when you're binding in the gut, you're removing and you're not just redistributing it elsewhere. So that's what's so important. A word to the wise. It's wonderful to take along. I like to think of it as a foundational support to any protocol. The only thing I would suggest separating it from, one, is not to have it with chlorinated water. Two is any medication that has iodine. So like levothyroxine or like a thyroid medication often has iodine. You just want to separate them by an hour. It's a charge thing. One's positive, one's negative, and, you know, just separate them by an hour. And then the other one are binders, you know, when we are discussing heavy metals. So if you are doing a binder, separate it by an hour at least from ion, because you don't want them just to bind to each other.
Yeah. So one last thing I want to talk about. So both of the ones that we've been discussing can be used for pets. Actually, I specifically have the pet one for the gut, but the skin spray can be used on pets as well.
Compliant-wise, I should always say that the pets should have the pets and the humans should have the humans.
Of course.
And then everything else you can take with a grain of salt. Nothing's going to harm anyone, but for FDA compliance issues, you know.
Yes, we all know about the FDA.
a pet bottle, I would use the same human dosing as a human. If I were a pet and I happened upon the human bottle, I would use the same dosing as is on the back of the pet. So it's the same per weight, how much you're giving them in a day.
Sorry, I know that you guys have to. I know what it's like when you're a company and you have to be careful about that kind of thing. But,
totally. We love you, FDA.
But I'm happy to say what I use in my own household, and that is I use all the pet stuff on my.
Yeah, and that's what I try to speak to people about. It's like the experience of others. I speak through my experience. When I want to run out of one, I use the other, versus do this or do that. Yeah.
Now, this last thing that I wanted to talk about, though, is for the people, for sure. So the plus line. So I'm holding up here, and let me hold up the other ones too, because I got a little sample
popular one
packet.
right now. That is prized possession, what you've got, that sleep.
Yeah. So this is the Ion Plus line. So there's 3 different formulas. One is restful sleep, and then there's the focused mind, which is for cognition, and then the vital immunity, which is for strengthening immune function. I got the sampler pack, and I ended up buying the whole package of the restful sleep, because I will tell you that as a night shift worker, although I do my utmost best to try and swap back after my last day by not sleeping as much, that night still tends to be difficult to fall back into the, okay, it's 10 p.m. and instead of getting ready to go to work, I'm getting ready to get into my bed. So having something like this is really nice. And I love how it has the chamomile in it. I have a chamomile tattoo. I love plants and herbs. Yeah. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, I have to try it. And so tell us a little bit about these.
Yeah, so the Ion Plus line is an adaptogen drink mix. So they have powerful super mushrooms, herbal adaptogens. They're sourced. It was really a labor of love for our formulator, who, quote unquote, went to the ends of the earth for some of these materials. Because one, she has her passion project. Wendy Michelle's our formulator for this Plus line. She has, her whole mission is in sourcing for supplements, because she found such an issue with the sourcing of ingredients and supplement lines and the fillers. So this is about as curated as one could get on all of its sourced from grown in good soil, organic and regenerative organic when we can get there. Regenerative organic is hard to come by for consistent sourcing, but she has this amazing ceremonial matcha and the focused mind, which is my personal favorite. But the idea of these adaptogen mixes, Zach calls it nature dosing. So think of we've been hitting people with 10,000 IUs and 20,000 mega dosing supplements. And if it's in a format that the body doesn't recognize, it's literally, expensive urine. We're hammering our bodies with sources of things that often are cut with bad oils or rancid and all sorts of these issues with it. So this is working in kind of it's like a micro dosing, but nature dosing. Yeah. So we're using these adaptogens that are spurring a response in the body that is long lasting as you take it. It's not just this is just going to last for this amount of time. You're literally getting your body more adapted to these areas that we find a lot of people, need. The restful sleep is something you don't I mix everything in water, just typically with the drinks, but you can make some beautiful beverages. With the restful sleep, people are liking with a warm beverage, warm nut milk, warm almond or cashew milk. The restful sleep with a little, use your little blender tool and add some cinnamon to it.
Oh my God. I'm going to do that tonight, because last night was my last night shift. So I only slept 5 hours to try it so I can convert back to night shift. But I love raw milk. So instead of mixing it with water this time, I think I'll try and mix it with milk and put a little bit. I have Ceylon cinnamon, so I'll sprinkle a little bit of that on top. Oh my gosh, you just gave me the best idea.
Little treat, your little nightcap, because
that's
part
amazing.
of sleep and healthy sleep is making this ritual of winding down. So this is that little nightcap that's like you're taking like 30 minutes before bed as you're winding down. And people freaking love it. Like we sold out of the 5-pack. We still have the 20 packs right now, and we'll have another shipment in mid-February. And then my favorite's the Focus Mind. It's a matcha blend. I kind of take it in the afternoon after, like, if I'm having a little lag, but I don't want to have coffee that late in the day. It is an incredibly, like, buzz-free, just lift. Like, it's not jittery. You don't have a crash, but I have such a lift using it. I recently was in Vegas for a show and came back, and I had jet lag for like 4 or 5 days and just groggy in the day and like brain fog. Yep. I would take a Focus Mind and be like zippity-doo-dah day. And again, I like to do it, sometimes with coconut water, or sometimes I'll do like lime, or like, kind of you can play with it. But the Focus Mind you could also do, as a warm. I haven't done it warm yet, but I typically I have a water bottle. I pour it in the water bottle and give it a shake. It's all natural. There are no fillers, no sweeteners, or no like refined sweeteners. It's sweetened with monk
artificial
fruit.
Monk fruit.
Yeah, some people really like that's monk fruit, and that it's not with stevia. When I first started taking them, I was just adding them to like a little bit of water, and they were too sweet. I added it to a larger bit of water, like my 12 ounce, and it was just delicious. It's so good, but it's finding that right balance, and you can play with it. It's a spectrum.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to take it as a shot and just be done, then add it to a little bit and throw it back. But if you want to sip it and actually enjoy it, then maybe, like 8-10 ounces. That's what I did for the nighttime one. Yeah.
If you're feeling fancy, like I like to say, add a shot of ion to it, because that's what it's the Ion Plus line, because it's ideally you're taking it with ion, and ion's there to receive it and bring those adaptogens and those nutrients and that, all of that into the cell. So it's an amplifier. I like to see ion too as like kind of an amplifier of that, because it's actually increasing that absorption. So I'd make a whole little ritual. Have a drink, have a beverage, put an ion.
Try it tonight.
Yeah. And even like we've had some fun like mocktail parties with the Plus Line, and like the immunity, and bringing lime juice, and like sparkling water, and there's just different ways that you can incorporate a healthy treat, and it's not in a pill format, but it's still supporting your body's innate intelligence.
Nice. Tell us how people can find these products. What's the best way?
Yeah, so we're actually, you can go to our website, of course, intelligenceofnature.com. If you are a general, consumer, to purchase the pet product, there is a subscription option where you immediately get 15% off. So that's going to be the best kind of price probably, is getting on our subscription. If you're a practitioner, you're a vet, you want to bring it into your clinic, we do have wholesale accounts as well for practitioners and for retail shops. We're also on Chewy.com, and we just launched on Chewy.com today. So if you have your animal food on Chewy, if you have any deliveries from them, you can get Ion Pet in your Chewy delivery now.
Oh, cool. That's so convenient for people. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, for educating us. And I am excited to make my little restful sleep cocktail tonight with my milk and my Ion and my cinnamon, and I'll have to let you know how it goes.
Yes, enjoy. It was so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We'll see everybody next week.
Thank you for listening. Please remember that you are the driving force that helps keep small businesses and platforms like mine running. So if you liked what you heard, please like, share, and most importantly, rate this podcast. It's the only way we can reach more people and spread the word about natural health. None of the conditions discussed or recommendations given are meant to replace the advice of your health provider. So if you have concerns about yourself or your pets, please confer with a human or animal health practitioner. Have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you next week.